Richard Dolan calls the Admiral Wilson docs the most significant UFO document leak of this century. The notes were taken by Eric Davis during a private meeting with Admiral Thomas Wilson. I've gone through and pulled some of the highlights, so let's check it out.
The events of this document have been discussed for years. Dolan's been talking about this document since 2007, and it was referred to by Dr. Stephen Greer, Grant Cameron, the late Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, and Lieutenant Commander Willard Miller. The Admiral Wilson documents were uploaded to Imager.com on April 19, 2019. As you can see here in the subreddit of aliens, it's under leak, and then it has the link here that takes you to Imager. This document talks about UFOs, crash retrieval, and the Majestic 12. I'm going to cover the highlights of this document, and I encourage you to check out the rest of it yourself. It's a 15-page document, and there's also a Dolan article that I can link to as well if you want to check out his article. So before you start reading this document or getting into it, you want to know who the players are. The Wilson documents are named after Admiral Thomas Wilson. Admiral Wilson had a long career in the Navy. He worked as Director of Defense for the Intelligence Agency, Director of Intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Deputy Director of Intelligence for the Joint Chiefs. And he met with Dr. Eric Davis, an astrophysicist who worked in the National Institute for Discovery of the Sciences, also known as NIDS. NIDS was funded by Robert Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace, and NIDS was responsible for scientific research in all areas of UFO, including investigating the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, in which Davis was involved. And now Eric Davis is currently working with Earth Tech, which was started by Hal Puthoff, which is a company that is contracted to work with the To the Stars Academy. What's a neat little fact here too is Puthoff and Davis worked on the remote viewing protocols for the government back in the 70s. So let's talk about the document. The 15 pages of notes were taken by Eric Davis about a meeting he had with Admiral Wilson on October 16th of 2002. The meeting took place behind the EG&G Special Projects building in Las Vegas, Nevada. The EG&G Special Projects Division operated the Janet Terminal at McCarran International Airport, where airplanes would transport employees to remote government locations in Nevada and California, including Area 51. Davis notes that Admiral Wilson confirms that in June of 1997 that, quote, there is such an organization in existence, referring to MJ-12. This was confirmed for Admiral Wilson by Lieutenant Commander Willard Miller. Wilson goes on talking more about Miller, laughing as he says he didn't tell Miller everything, and then he goes on to tell Davis not to pay Miller. What I gather from reading up till here is that Wilson doesn't want Davis to work with Miller. He becomes dismissive and he changes the subject. So the next part of the document is a letter from Will Miller to Eric Davis. So let's get into the letter. In this letter, Miller asks if Eric Davis and or Hal Puthoff would be interested in meeting with Robert Beckwith to attend a roundtable about the force model of the universe and his planned experiments on levitation, teleportation, and time travel, among other subjects. So Miller also states, I'd be willing to assist you and Hal with your ongoing research into UFO crash retrieval. And then Miller outlines 4 other things that he can offer as intel to Davis and Puthoff if he's hired. So he put a lot of information in that letter. He's like, I got all this intel if you want to work with me. So after reading the letter, you start to ask some questions. You want to know, well, what is Davis's connection to Miller and how is Wilson connected to Miller and Davis? Does Wilson actually know how much Miller knows, or is he trying to figure out how much Miller knows? So this gives a little more context to when Wilson is saying, well, don't trust Miller. Miller kind of can make an educated guess, but he really doesn't know. Don't work with him. He's trying to get a retirement house in Florida, he says in the documents. But then this letter just kind of shows he's trying to get work from Wilson somehow. Right. On page 6 of the document, you can see that Wilson is now angry at Miller. He's angry that Miller shared the information with Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Greer, as well as in articles from Keene and the Boston Globe. And then Wilson goes on to explain to Davis, he says, he got calls from all over. people, co-workers in the Pentagon, civilian SES people, and people in the intel community were being sarcastic to him, making jokes and comments about him talking to UFO nuts. So he goes on to say that he's taking a risk by speaking to Davis. So what's Wilson's goal again? What is his endgame? He's been embarrassed for talking to UFO people in the past, so why is he meeting with Davis? The meeting. Wilson made 3 calls, one to a program manager, one to a security director, and one with a corporate attorney. They were agitated and confused by Wilson's call. He wanted to know about their UFO crash program, what their role was, what they had, and he asked if they ever heard of the MJ-12 or some sort of organization related to crash or recovered UFO craft. Wilson demanded the team provide him with a formal briefing. He told them that his not being briefed was an oversight that needed to be corrected. Within 2 days, Wilson received a call that would secure a meeting with the 3 individuals known as the Watch Committee or the Gatekeepers. A little over a week later, Wilson flew out to meet the security director, the program manager, and the corporate attorney at an undisclosed location. Wilson says he believes this committee operates without any official oversight, which seems to frustrate Wilson. And then the best part is Wilson was given the meeting to tell him he was not going to be let in. He was told he didn't meet the special criteria, so the need to know was not being granted. They said it wasn't relevant to the nature of their program. So here the program manager tells Wilson that they're not a weapons program, they're not an intelligence program, not any sort of special ops or logistics program. But Wilson keeps pushing. When they finally tell him they were a reverse engineering program, the program manager says there's an intact craft they believe could fly. Then he goes on to say they don't know where it's from, it's not of this earth, not made by human hands. They just don't know. They go on to say the project's been moving very slowly due to limited manpower with only 400 to 800 employees. Wilson is still upset, and so he threatens to go to the Special Access Program Oversight Committee to complain so he can get access to their program. They told him to go right on ahead. So Wilson goes ahead and does it. And then it comes back. What? Wilson, you should drop the matter. It didn't fall in his oversight. His career was threatened by the senior review group chairman if he didn't forget the matter. In 1998, Wilson spoke with Jack Gansler, an academic and former Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition, Technology, and Logistics. Gansler says, quote, to Wilson, UFOs are real. So-called alien abductions, not real. And he tells him to drop the matter.
If what Gansler says is true, UFOs are real, alien abductions are not real, then who is piloting the unidentified crafts? And if alien abductions aren't real, are abductions real? There are 2 things we can gather from this document. One is that there is an existence of the MJ-12, and 2, that there are private contractors working on UFO crash retrievals. This is a 15-page document, so I wasn't able to cover the whole thing, but I encourage you to check out the link in the description and check out the documents for yourself. And let us know what you think. Leave a comment in the section below, and remember to stay strange.